Today's lesson is solving inequalities using multiplication and division. It's almost the same idea as what you would do for solving equations with multiplication and division. But this time, when you multiply or divide by a negative attached to the variable, you will switch the inequality. So it's the same, almost the same concept, except when it comes to the negative part. Our objectives is to use multiplication to solve inequalities and to use division to solve inequalities. So, if I look at A, 2 is dividing into x, so I need to get rid of 2 to isolate the variable by itself. So I am going to multiply by 2 to both sides. Now remember, 2 is a positive, so I am not going to change the inequality. So it's going to be x is less than negative 2. See, the inequality did not change. And again, you're going to have your 0, negative 2, and 2. Now you have to remember your open circle or closed circle. It's less than negative 2, so it's an open circle, and it's less than. Remember, you do it from the you read it from the variable. Okay. B, I have 3 is dividing to D, so I need to multiply by 3 to both sides. Oh, this time I'm multiplying by a fraction, so I'm going to make it 3 over 1 because it's multiplied by 3. And then I have D is greater than, because I didn't multiply by a negative, it's going to be 15 over 6, which also can be, D is greater than 2, and 3, 6, which is D is greater than 2 1/2. So then you have 0, 2 1/2, and negative 2 1/2. Again, it does not have an equal sign underneath it, so it's an open sign, and this time D is greater. It's the inequality is eating the D, so it's greater than 2 1/2. Why don't you try C by yourself? So put me on pause, do your stuff, check it out, and when you're finished graphing it, check. All right. So on C, I multiplied by 0.5, and it would be y is less than or equal to negative 1.5, because the negative did not go with the 0.5, it went with just the negative 3, so you do not switch the inequality. And then you have, it's a less than or equal to sign, and then you go towards the left. Okay, let's do one that's a fraction, just to remind you of what happens. Okay, so I'm going to make it 2 over 1, so we have a fraction with the 2. Now, what do I do to get n by itself? It's multiplying, but to do fractions, we're going to multiply by its something or other. We're going to multiply by its reciprocal. So this time it's negative 3 over 2. We multiply by negative 3 over 2. These go away. N. Now, this time I multiplied by a negative. So the inequality changes. It's going to become greater than or equal to. And then I can reduce ahead of time. I can reduce the 2 and the 2. And the 3 and the 1 is already, so it's going to be negative 3. And then you do your 0, your negative 3, and your positive 3. It has an equal sign with it, so it's going to be a closed circle, and it goes to the right. E. T happens to not be by itself. It happens to have a negative sign. What number goes with the negative? It's a -1. It's a hidden number. It's -1. So we need to get rid of -1. Again, we're working with fractions, so I'm going to make it over 1. So I'm going to multiply by its reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by 1 over -1. So it's t. I multiplied by a negative on the variable, so it's going to be now less than. And then I'm going to do 1 over -1. And I'm going to multiply. There's no reducing it, so it's going to be 1 and -2. Or -1/2. It depends on if you want to do it that way. It's the same idea. So you do 0, 1/2, and -1/2. It will be a open circle because there's no equal sign and it's less than. I'd like you to try F by yourself. Please put me on pause after you've done all the graphing. Check and see if you got it correct. If you haven't, please fix it. All right. So I received -10 is greater than or equal to W. Remember, again, when you're graphing, you have to read it from the variable. So this would be W is less than or equal to -10. That's the reason why I went to the left. Now, again, I multiplied by a negative, so I had to change the inequality sign. And I turned the 6 into a fraction. And that's how you would do the problem. All right, let's try the next one. All right. We have -5 is multiplying to z, so I'm going to divide by -5 to both sides. Again, I'm multiplying by a negative, dividing by a negative, so it's going to be z is, again, I'm going to flip my inequality around, so it's now z is greater than -5. 0, 5, and -5. It's an open circle, and it's greater than. I'd like you to try C and D by yourself and check it out. Put me on pause, check it out, see if you got it correct after you graphed both of them. And then if you did something wrong, please fix the problems. All right. So for B, I have now W is less than or equal to -4, and here's how the graph works. And C is 3 is less than N, or N is greater than 3, and this is how the graph works. Example 4, the student council votes to buy food for a food bank. A case of 12 jars of spaghetti costs $13.75. What is the greatest number of cases the student council can buy if they use at most? So the most is going to be like this. At most, 216 for the project. So it's going to be not, they're giving me too much information with the 12 jars, but it's going to cost me $13.75 per case. So I'm going to make that C. Now I have to figure out how many I can buy. So instead of rounding up your number, you're going to round down your number if it's a decimal. So then I have my equation. Now I'm going to divide by 13.75. So C is less than or equal to, and then you 216 divided by 13.75, and that is about 15.7. Now, so how many cases can I buy? I can't round up because if I round up, then it's going to cost me more than $216, so I have to round myself down. So I can get 15 cases, and that's how you would do that. You cannot have a portion of a case. They're not going to give it to you. They just want you to tell me how many cases they can buy. Goodbye.